Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Fulbright research presentation titled Reimagining Literacy, Innovation, Interpretation, and Impact in Education. My name is Raisa, and I'll be your moderator for today. Before we get started, I would like to inform you that this meeting will be recorded. And I'd also like to introduce our two brilliant speakers for today. So our first speaker is Dr. Maria Teodora Ping. She's a senior lecturer at Mulawarman University in Samarinda, Indonesia, and her research focuses on literacy as well as bilingual and multilingual language education. Her work has been featured in both national and international academic venues, including publications in the Journal of Learning, Culture, and Social Interaction, and presentations at the extensive Reading World Congress. She's also a co-author of a culturally themed pictorial storybook highlighting Dayak traditions, which has been utilized in local literacy developments. And for her presentation today, titled Literacy Instruction Models and Early Literacy Skills Screening Instruments, this presentation will highlight key insights into literacy instruction strategies that are potentially adaptable to the Indonesian educational context. It also will introduce an ongoing project focused on the redevelopment of an early literacy skill screening instrument. And this presentation is grounded in research conducted as part of the Fulbright Visiting Scholar Program at the Department of Teaching and Learning, The Ohio State University. So that's Dr. Maria Teodora Ping. Can't wait to hear your presentation in a bit. And for our second speaker is Dr. Irfan Rifai. Um, so Dr. Irfan is a lecturer at BINUS University and is currently head of the Creative Digital English Study Program at BINUS University, Jakarta. So his research interests include teachers' professional development, drama in education, teaching reading and literacy, language teaching and learning, creative responses in learning, and digital literacy. He's also made significant contributions to the academic community through his role as a reviewer in reputable journals such as Research in Drama Education, the Journal of Applied Theater and Performance, Muslim Education Review, IJELR, and others. His involvement with these journals reflects his dedication to fostering rigorous academic discourse in the fields of applied theater, literacy, and educational research. So today, Dr. Irfan will be presenting titled Read Like an Actor, Discuss It Like a Director. And that will be a 15-minute talk about performative approach to reading and interpreting texts. So like actors, readers should first engage with a text emotionally and physically to bring text and words to life through voice, expression, and embodiment. Then, like directors, readers step back to analyze the bigger picture, examining purpose, structure, and meaning. So this dual approach fosters both empathy and critical thinking, encouraging readers not only to feel the text, but also to make interpretive choices, ask questions, and shape discussions with vision and intentionality to improve their comprehension. So, those are our two speakers for today. After they both present, there's going to be a Q&A session for about 40 minutes. So if you want to ask a question later, you may raise your hand or you may type your question in the chat box. You may also start asking questions while the speakers are presenting in the chat box, not while speaking, and I will start reading them out when the Q&A session begins. So that's all for the Q&A session technicalities. So without further ado, please welcome our first presenter, Dr. Maria Theodora Ping.
Thank you very much, Ms. Raisa, for the wonderful introduction. A very good morning to everyone. It's very nice to see everyone here. I see quite a lot of people, 100 plus. Um, I would like to firstly thank Pak Dr. Irfan and the colleagues at the Creative Digital English of BINUS University for inviting me and for organizing this event. I'm really honored to be here. And also, of course, to Ms. Mita as the representative of Aminef and Fulbright Indonesia for the immense support and also for co-hosting and co-organizing this event. My name is Maria Teodora Ping. I'm a lecturer at Mulawarman University, particularly at the Faculty of Teacher Training and Education, English Department. And I'm also a Fulbright Visiting Scholar Awardee, batch 2024. So I was at the Ohio State University for 5 months to do field research there. And today I'll be sharing um, some details from my ongoing Fulbright research program. All right, please allow me to share my screen. Okay, so as mentioned previously by the moderator, Ms. Raisa, the title of my presentation today is Literacy Instructions and Early Literacy Skills Screening Instrument. My presentation will be focusing more on the early childhood or young learners. I think Dr. Irfan later will focus more on the older learners. And also, my presentation might sound a little bit more conceptual, but there will be also some practical ideas and practical aspects that we can discuss further later in the Q&A session. And I am really looking forward to the discussion session as well. All right. So this is just a little bit of the introduction about myself, but the moderator has already introduced me. And the focus of my presentation will be on these two main points. In the first part of the presentation, I would like to share with you some key takeaways and insights into potentially effective literacy instructions that I have synthesized from my intensive library study, discussions with literacy experts at the Ohio State University, and as well from the field visits during my Fulbright Visiting Scholar program in the States. And then in the second part, I will be sharing about the main activity that I've done for my Fulbright Visiting Scholar research, namely the redevelopment of an early literacy skills screening instrument. Okay, so let me share just a little bit about the background of my Fulbright Visiting Scholar research project. So I focused my research project on literacy based on the rationale, based on the premise that literacy is a foundational, fundamental component of education and empowerment. And then we have seen from the literature and also from reports that there are still some literacy challenges in the Indonesian context. Just I think a few days ago, I saw this news clip on YouTube, and also I think it was on broadcasted on TV as well, and covered by the media that there are still quite a large number of students in the middle school level, the junior high school students in a particular part of Indonesia who are not able to read and write properly yet. So we've been talking a lot about literacy and literacy challenges, about some issues regarding the basic literacy skills like reading, writing, the numeracy, and then we've been talking also endlessly about the low performance in our PISA assessment results. But it's like we have been doing a lot. There have been a lot of efforts by the Indonesian government, by the Ministry of Education, by community members as well, by schools. But still, we hear this kind of problem pertaining. That is why the need for further research, as our context is quite underrepresented in the worldwide instructional quality literature, the need for more in-depth exploration concerning literacy instruction practices, which might be implemented in Indonesia or in the Indonesian context, and as well the need for more standardized literacy assessment instruments, as the recent literature indicates that we are actually still lacking in this particular aspect. So that's why the research objectives that I have formulated for my Fulbright Visiting Scholar research is that, firstly, I would like to investigate existing literacy practices in the USA for cross-national comparison. By cross-national comparison, it doesn't mean that I regard that everything that has been done in the States would be better than what we have done in Indonesia. No, but it will serve mainly as something to compare, some indicators to see what we have done, and it's also serving as an encouragement for the Indonesian literacy practitioners when we see, okay, we have done actually quite similar activities or quite similar strategies. So what should be done in the future? So that would be the objective of the first research focus that I have been formulating. And then the second objective is related to the development of a model for literacy promotion or literacy instruction, and also the relevant literacy assessment instrument. And then, of course, I would like to inform future educational research, policymakers, and practitioners, especially schools and teachers, and also those who are doing community services related to literacy promotion. All right, so let's start with the first key takeaway. There are 5 key takeaways that I can summarize from the very extensive library study or literature review concerning literacy instructions, particularly in the context of the United States and also the Ohio State, what they have been doing so far, the research and all. And also based on the intensive discussions I have with my mentor, Dr. Emily Rogers, as one of the literacy experts at the Ohio State University, and also from the field visits at some schools in Columbus. The first key takeaway concerning literacy instruction is that we have to provide what we call the explicit, systematic, and differentiated instruction of foundational literacy skills. And this particular key takeaway is very much relevant, especially for early childhood education for younger learners. What does it mean by explicit instruction? Explicit instruction refers to the instructions in which we model the strategies. We provide scaffolding as the strategies, and then we also articulate the clear reasons for the usefulness of each and every lessons that we do. So that's the explicit instruction. And the systematic instruction refers to the instructions in which we build the skills from basic to more advanced in a logical sequence. So there are 5 pillars of basic literacy skills, namely phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and also comprehension. Well, starting from the pre-K or from the kindergarten level, the basic skills should be built, starting from, say, for example, phonemic awareness and phonics, and then gradually the skills taught to the students will be more complicated and more complex um, based on the logical sequence. So that's what is meant by systematic instructions. And also, differentiated instructions are highly recommended when we address the diverse skill sets and the ability levels of students. Well, those of you who are working with Curriculum Merdeka might be familiar already with differentiated instructions. Yeah, it's also been encouraged in our educational system and in our curriculum. However, um, what is quite special to me when I investigated and explored about literacy instructions in the States is that they use what they call a multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS. Well, basically, if any one of you is familiar with the term RTI, response to intervention. This is a modified version of RTI in which we use student data. So we assess student and then we collect data. And afterwards, we use the data collected to match the needs with the instructions given to the students. There are basically three tiers. In the first tier, we include all the students to give them the core instructions. And then there is also what is called by tier two. In tier two, we select some of the students with challenges or some of the students who face some challenges in learning, in this case, literacy. And then in tier three, we select even smaller students with bigger challenges in learning. Yeah, so this is data-based or data-driven support or intervention, which has been recommended in all of the schools in the United States for literacy instructions. Okay, second key takeaway is related to evidence-based instructions, which are grounded in research. So early care and education leaders, those who are teaching, especially at the early childhood education, at the primary education, need a solid understanding of how children learn to read, informed by research from various fields. And this is known as the term the science of reading. The science of reading has been also a debate in the States concerning different opinions, because there is also people who oversimplify the concept by mentioning that the science of reading is basically just phonics instruction. But actually, what it's meant by the science of reading is that we use every single information from different perspectives, such as psychology, and then also linguistics, in order to be able to provide instructions in the classroom which are scientifically supported. And then there's also a concept recommended, goes by the name the simple view of reading. So the simple view of reading is basically claiming that reading comprehension is the interaction between two important aspects related to word recognition and language comprehension. And then there's also a curated approved list of evidence-based instructions and materials. So the Ohio Department of Education, they created a very long list of evidence-based instructions. Evidence-based instructions means that they are backed by research and findings from research. Yeah. So teachers, schools and teachers can select the instructions and materials that will be relevant for their needs. And I think we don't have this one yet. Litbang Dikbud is very active in providing supports and materials for literacy instructions as well. But somehow I think, in my humble opinion, we still need more evidence-based instructions that can be recommended to teachers and schools. Okay, key takeaway number 3. This is very important. Professional learning for teachers. Professional learning for teachers do not only refer to all the additional training and workshops that in-service teachers have to do in order to develop their professional capacity for literacy instructions. I think there are already a lot of workshops and trainings that Indonesian teachers have gone through regarding literacy instructions as well. However, what I see in the States, especially at the Ohio State University, which I think we can adopt the idea, is that they formally include literacy and teaching reading as compulsory subjects in the curriculum for pre-service teachers, both for the primary education teachers and for TESOL teachers, or English teachers. Well, I have checked some of the curricula of PGSD and Pendidikan Bahasa Indonesia and also Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris, including the ones that we offer at my university. Unfortunately, I think we haven't really put literacy and teaching reading as a highlight in the curriculum as well. So this might be something that we can consider later. Yeah. So if you're in the capacity of developing curriculum for your university, you might consider this. Key takeaway number 4. A comprehensive and aligned system of assessment for data-driven decision making. This is something which I think also is important for us here in the Indonesian context to consider. So everything, the instructions in the school are based on data. So not only it is based on concepts and evidence-based empirical research findings, but also it is based on the data from our students. So standardized assessments would be very necessary in order to obtain this particular kind of data. Well, actually, we already have this concept. If you take a look at buku Bahasa Indonesia for SD, written by Ibu Dr. Sofi Dewayani, there is already like a concept of giving regular assessments, that teachers should give regular assessments in order to check or track the progress of the children in their literacy development. However, to what extent this particular assessment has been implemented at schools, we don't know yet. Yeah. Sometimes teachers are quite overloaded with everything, administrative staffs, and also with their teachings, the activities at school. So it's pretty much understandable that regular assessments would be a bit exhausting. So I think one of the solutions for that, in my humble opinion, would be providing several standardized assessments that teachers can also choose and use, so that they can still provide this particular regular assessments that will help them anyway in the end to develop their own instructions and instructional materials. Okay, and the last key takeaway, I think this one is also very important, and this has to some extent been done in our Indonesian context. Meaningful partnerships and collaborations with family, community members, and academic communities. So with the family, there should be two-way communication in which schools provide home supports for literacy. The Office of Education can provide home supports for literacy and also engage families to be able to enhance school and home literacy support. One very nice idea that I heard from one of the principals of the schools that I've visited back in Columbus was that they regularly invite parents. Well, the school is actually located in the area in which the families are from the low socioeconomic status, also a low educational background or academic background. But they try to engage the family as much as possible by inviting the family and the caregivers to schools, also to share what the family has done in order to support the children's literacy development at school. And then the schools will also share the so-called best practices from parents to the other parents. So it's like from parents to other parents. And they said that so far, this particular approach has been also effective, yeah, in addition to um, using data-driven instructions and based on research and blah, blah, blah. This particular kind of best practices shared among the parents are also one of the um, one of the instructions or one of the approaches that might work. Okay, and then collaboration with community members. For example, when I visited one of the schools, they were in a very good partnerships with the local library and the local artists. So the library provided them with some more materials for the students, and then also the artists from the community, from the art community, came in and helped the students with some art and literacy related projects. I think this one is it's very nice to be adopted as well in our Indonesian context. As I know that in Indonesia, we also have quite a lot of initiatives by the community members, a lot of rumah baca, a lot of reading aloud communities, storytelling communities. So it would be nice if there can be also partnerships, regular partnerships, and also a kind of consistent partnerships with the schools. And also, one of the things that we might not widely have in the Indonesian context that they have in the States is the university-led initiatives, including the creation of reading laboratories, in which some treatments and interventions such as reading recovery program can be done, or literacy centers. Maybe one or two of our state universities already have some centers for literacy, but for reading labs, I think I haven't seen any of the examples in our context. So in the future, I think this will be a very brilliant solution that can also encourage academics, professors, or those who are working on literacy to put the knowledge that they have into practices, into real practices, by working with schools, by working with teachers, and by working with students which need help in terms of reading recovery or in terms of their literacy promotion. Okay, so to sum up, I try to visualize all the 5 key takeaways. Yeah, so these 5 key takeaways, namely explicit, systematic, differentiated instruction, evidence-based practices, professional development, data-driven assessment, family and community collaboration, can be put together nicely in a framework for literacy instruction, which might potentially be useful later to produce what we call as skilled readers. All right, so this is the end of the first part of my presentation. I'm going to switch to the second part. Hopefully, I'm still good with the time. Ms. Raisa, how much time do I still have, if I may know? Okay, probably I still have enough time. Okay, now let me just continue with my next presentation. Okay, so I will be sharing about what I have done for approximately 5 months, and actually this is still ongoing. So I continue this in Indonesia, and I think it will still be ongoing for the next couple of years. So together with my mentor, Dr. Emily Rogers, we try to redevelop an early literacy skills screening instrument. So the original instrument is called OSELA, or the Observation Survey of Early Literacy Achievement. This instrument has been used widely in the US as the basis for various reading recovery programs. And also this instrument has been adapted by other countries, other nations, and translated into different languages. But we don't have it yet in Indonesia. So we have been trying to create or to redevelop the Indonesian version for it. So this is just an illustration of OSELA. OSELA has 6 subtests. The first one is letter identification and then word test. In Ohio, they use the Ohio word test. In other states and other countries, they use different word tests. But basically, the word test is a list of sight words that have to be mastered by primary school pupils or primary school students. And then there's a phonemic awareness subtest, writing vocabulary, concepts about print, and then text reading. Well, in the redevelopment process, I have followed the ADDIE model, analysis, design, develop, implement, evaluate model, this very popular instructional design model. So I adopted and also modify the steps in order to redevelop the instrument. In the first step, in the needs analysis step, I tried to see first the current contexts, both in the US and Indonesia, because we cannot simply modify the instrument as is, per se. Yeah, so there are a lot of contexts that should be considered. The first is the context regarding the objectives and the procedures of the redevelopment. Yeah, whether we should redevelop all 6 subsets atau something like that, or maybe just select some of the relevant subtasks to be redeveloped based on the context or the necessity in Indonesia. And then also some context related to the administration, including copywriting, because Ozella has been copyrighted. So Dr. Rogers and I have been in contact with the publishers, the Mary Clay trust boards, and also the association in the United States, the associations of teachers in the United States that have been in charge of this particular instrument. So it's quite an arduous process, but it's very rewarding, I can tell, to be able to talk with people who have really great passion for literacy and literacy development. And the second phase, I did this in the States as well during my Fulbright Visiting Scholar period. The design and development phase, I put them into one phase in which we created a blueprint of the instrument. So out of 6 subtests, we picked only 3 subtests which were or which have been regarded as relevant to the Indonesian context, because one of the challenges is that we are lacking of standardized instruments in Indonesia. So it's very difficult to cross-validate the instruments. I had to find equivalent instruments already existing in Indonesia, and I only found like 2 instruments. The first one is EGRA, which was developed by USAID. And then the other one is a 1-minute reading test developed by a researcher in Indonesia. So I could only find those 2 standardized instruments to be cross-validated with the instrument that I have been redeveloping. It's quite a big challenge actually, but anyway. And then in this step, we also develop a prototype instrument, including the implementation manuals and the scoring sheets. So basically, the implementation manuals and the scoring sheets are also from the original version being translated into the Indonesian version. And then an important consideration in this phase is that there's a challenge as well in translating the source language and the cultural context or the backgrounds from English to Bahasa Indonesia. So I received a huge support from the Indonesian academic community at the OSU. So some of my fellow PhD students there help with the back translation. So I'm really grateful for that. Okay, so the design and development phase yielded or resulted in the prototype of the instruments with 3 subtests, namely letter identification, word reading, and concepts about print. I cannot share much yet, but you can see some of the screenshots. And then the implementation phase is the next phase in which we did already the mock pilot testing, where we invited some of the primary school teachers to provide some feedback. We did some sort of mock testing with them, and also the pilot testing, which is ongoing. So I can say that the progress of this redevelopment of the instrument is still approximately at the 85% level. Yeah, we still need to go through some pilot testing phases and then also the evaluation phase with feedback from target users, from teachers, feedback from experts, and also the revision of the prototype. Okay, so this is the current findings. This is still in progress. So basically, based on the pilot testing that has been conducted, we have found some key findings. There were still some confusions and some challenges related to aspects such as phonemic awareness and also concepts about prints. So word reading and fluency are still the challenges that the first grade students in the typical state elementary school in Indonesia uh, have regarding their literacy competence or literacy skills. So what we are going to do with the findings, we are going to create a profile of the findings for the teachers and for the schools so that they can be informed about the current literacy proficiency or literacy skills of their students that participated in our pilot testing. And then we are going to work closely as well with the schools in order to provide them with some recommendations for further instructions or further interventions. All right, so we come to the conclusion and the implications of my presentation today. Based on the library study, the expert discussions, and also the field visits that I have done during my Fulbright Visiting Scholar program, there are 5 key takeaways related to potentially effective literacy instructions, namely the use of explicit, systematic, and differentiated instructions, the use of evidence-based practices, professional development for teachers, both in-service and pre-service teachers, data-driven assessments, standardized data-driven assessments, be it the screening assessment or the diagnostic assessment, and collaboration with families and communities, including academic communities, the university-based communities. And then regarding the progress of my Fulbright Visiting Scholar Research Project in the development of the early literacy screening skill instrument for early intervention, we have done the first phases of the pilot testing. And the results have already revealed some challenges regarding some foundational skills such as letter identification, mechanics, concept about prints, and also fluency, which require further refinements and also some follow-ups. So what to do next? Of course, I will have to finalize the screening instrument and the whole process, and then also aligned it with the Indonesia's literacy context to be able to inform policymakers and also for classroom practices. The final remarks from me. So this current ongoing research project results might hopefully help bridge the gaps in literacy instruction through cross-national insights, aiming eventually to improve educational outcomes, especially related to literacy development or literacy promotion in Indonesia. And then further empirical studies as well as community service initiatives are necessary in order to strengthen the literacy promotion efforts in Indonesia. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes the whole country. It takes all of us to be able to develop a very solid literacy skills for everyone in Indonesia. Okay, so here are useful resources and references. I have shared the materials with the committee or the organizing committee. So they will send to you or share the materials with you later. Most of them can be accessed online. Yeah, so apologies if this doesn't look like APA or MLA, but you can click on the links. Yeah. And thank you very much. If you are interested in the topic, I'm looking forward to the discussion session. Your comments, thought, feedback would be very, very highly appreciated. Or if you are working as a teacher for first grader in primary school and you would like to take part in the pilot project as participants, feel free to reach out to me at Maria Teodora Ping at fkip.unmul.ac.id or ping.49@osu.edu. Thank you very much, and I will give the floor back to Miss Raisa as the moderator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maria, for your very insightful presentation. I think that these strategies will be very interesting to apply to an Indonesian context and hope for better literacy rates in Indonesia in the future. So next we have Dr. Irfan Rifai presenting Read Like an Actor, Discuss It Like a Director. The stage is yours, Pak.
Thank you, Raisa. Good morning, Ibu and Bapak. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Ping number 49, yeah, Miss Lola, yeah. So it reminds me that I am Rifai number 4 from Ohio
Yeah.
State.
At least you're not Kennedy number 1000 something.
Okay. Internal joke, Ibu and Bapak, ya. Okay, so Bapak Ibu, I would like to express my gratitude to Mbak Mita first and foremost. Thank you very much, Mbak Mita, to actually reconnect us, yeah, Miss Lola and I through this very important event, because it's not just we will be talking about our lives, but we are also talking about the kind of research that we have done, specifically for what Miss Lola or Miss Maria Teodora Ping has done in the United States. So, accompanying her presentation, I would like to share a few things or insights about how we could approach reading. So if Miss Lola earlier talked about literacy models and how then in the future it could be implemented in Indonesian classrooms, what I'm going to deliver to you is perhaps some ideas on how we can actually approach the teaching of reading in our classrooms. So be it a science class, be it a social class, be it an English as a foreign language class or English as a second language class. I would start by sharing. Hold on, let me share what I got. Okay. Okay, I hope everybody can see this. All right. So, okay, my name is Irfan Rifai. I happen to be the Creative Digital English program in BINUS University. And what I'm going to share with you is coming from somebody who likes performance, somebody who enjoys watching drama performances as well as theatrical performances. But since I took literacy and reading in the United States, in Ohio State University, so I was relating it to how then my hobbies in performances could actually relate to to reading activities. Yeah. So am I sharing? Am I saying correctly? So do you see what I'm sharing right now, Ibu and Bapak? Okay, great. So read it like an actor, discuss it like a reader. What is this? Discuss it like a director. What is it? Anyway, what is it about anyway? So so if you have been into a theatrical performance, you must be familiar with what you see right now. It's a video of a group of actors, amateur or professionals, who are currently doing what we call as table read. There doesn't have to be a table there. They don't even have to sit. They can even, they can stand and talk and practice and read together as actors. And then if you have been in these kind of situations, then you probably could relate that the moment that we do that, the moment that we read together is a moment of eventful learning. And this is not just based on personal experience. This is also based on long-time research made by no one other than Louis Rosenblatt, who a long time ago, since perhaps 1980s, 1990s, urged us to actually interact with text the way that actors do. Like, this is what she said, so I'm just going to read it. The reader needs to respond to the text as an actor responds to a script. Why? Because when you read as an actor, you bring your personal experience and emotions into the transaction. So her theory is about transactional reading. So she believes that when a reader reads, there is a transaction happening between what the readers know and what the readers emotionally feel about what they read, and then make an interpretation based on what they read. Yeah, so that's what Louis Rosenblatt said. And then there are two stances, two concepts that would probably, would be useful for you if you are an English teacher, if you are a language teacher, even if you are a social and humanities teachers. So what is that? So the title of my presentation is Read It Like an Actor and Discuss It Like a Director, principally or basically or fundamentally is actually representing two stances that Rosenblatt has said a long time ago. It's the aesthetic stance and the afferent stance. When you read like an actor, you are fundamentally ask questions like, what am I experiencing as I read? Okay, emotionally. So how do I relate with the characters emotionally? Why is the character behaving in such a way? If they behave in such a way, yeah, what would their thoughts or what would have been the ideas that have affected their actions or their choice of actions in the text? So the purpose when you read like an actor is fundamentally to experience, to feel, and then to try personally engage with the text. This is what Rosenblatt said about aesthetic stance when you read, right? So that is the first analogy or metaphor, if you would like to say it that way. And then to discuss like a director is an analogy I'm making about how we are using afferent stance when we read. So it's more like, what am I going to take away from this reading? So it's more like, what kind of information I'm getting by reading this small work of fiction, for example. And then when you do that, you interpret, you analyze, and then because as a director, you need to communicate the meaning of the text, right? So there is this process of both experiencing the aesthetic stance and the afferent stance. I'm not saying that you need to choose whether you read like an actor, whether you read as a director separately. You can even urge your students to experience both ways. You can make your students experience how it feels to become a character in the text, and you can even make them an agent on trying to see, what am I getting at from reading this piece of text, right? So these two stances will, or have proven to improve students' comprehension, because that's how actors actually read. And that's how directors actually read from the text or from the script that they read. Now, let's go back. Let's bring you to what we actually do in our classes. In reading instruction stages, everybody's familiar. You must be familiar that, or perhaps like in life, you have pre, you have whiles, and you have post. Yeah. And then when you do pre-read in your class, you actually prepare your students if you are a teacher. If you are reading it for yourself, then when you pre-read, you have a look at the cover. You try to understand, you try to predict what you are going to find in the text or in the books. And while you read, basically what happened is you are trying to decode the text. You try to understand the vocabulary. You try to understand the words and how ideas are interconnected in the text or in the book. And then at the same time, according theories, it's during reading, it's a top-down process as well, in which you are using prior knowledge, in the past to make prediction to try to figure out meaning from what you read. Okay, so I think while reading as a person and while preparing your students to do reading or to enjoy reading activity, these activities taps to both, in which you are making students try to process the text and adjust their expectations and meet their background knowledge to make meaningful interpretations. Now, what about post-reading? So many of us, sometimes we don't have time to actually try to do post-reading, despite how important it is, a post-reading activity is, Sometimes because you have to teach, if you are a teacher, 100 minutes, then all of a sudden it's 95 minutes already, and you don't have time to do post-reading. But despite our time management issue with the class, but post-reading is a very important thing, because this is a process when you encourage reflection and then make students make personal connections and then come out with their own interpretation that hopefully will be meaningful. And this approach we are using, by using dramatic strategies, by reading like an actor and discussing it like a director, will engage them aesthetically and in an afferent manner. Okay, so Bapak Ibu, that slide is particularly just to remind you of what stages we have and then how does this approach would fit in the process. Okay, now if you wonder what actually actors read and how it can be connected and makes it spatial is first, because let me share with you, some things. If you ever been in a production, okay, sorry, I just got reminded, Ibu and Bapak, bear with me. Give me 1 minute. Sorry, that's something. Hold on. What is it? Okay, sorry, technical issue. 1 minute, yeah. All right. So I'm sorry about that. So you were on the first slide only, yeah? So I'm just gonna have a quick recap of the previous slides that I have probably missed in showing you. Okay. So I begin with this, just to show the habits or the ritual of actors when they table read, when they rehearse and read some scripts together, in order to have better understanding of what the story is about, and how to actually we put them or translate them into a stage. And then I also introduced about a theory by Louis Rosenblatt about reader's response, transactional reading. So I also mentioned of the two stances that Rosenblatt have actually theorized. The first one was aesthetic stance, and the second one was afferent stance. In aesthetic stance, when I said to read like an actor, it means that you are as a reader, you are asking this question: what am I experiencing as a reader? So how do I feel what the what is it? The characters are feeling, towards something, toward an issue from the text that I read. And also in afferent stance, fundamentally you ask a question like, what am I going to take away from this reading? That's why I put this as an analogy of to read like a director, because as a director, you see a big picture. Yeah, you try, instead of not just experiencing it like an actor, instead you are trying to see, okay, so if I interpret that into a certain kind of actions differently from just what it appears on the text, then it would create something else, yeah, something different. So that is the sort of question as a director that you usually ask, or what they usually ask when they want to produce something out of a text. Okay, so sorry about missing some parts of this, but I also have mentioned about the reading instruction stages, and I highlighted that perhaps when you introduce the concept of reading like an actor, or perhaps discuss it like a director, perhaps it would be more suitable in a post-reading context, because then you would have more time to actually push, yeah, or encourage your students, if you are a teachers, how to then revisit the text and then translate it and interpret it in a different forms. Yeah, I think in my opinion, that's how comprehension can happen, or where comprehension happen. Okay, so then this is when I got reminded about, my slides didn't show up. So then what happened actually? How do actors read? What makes the process of actors reading special? This one, Ibu Bapak. Yeah. So this is what happens when you table read. Yeah, you read together. You're not just reading it together. You are actually trying to move, you involve a lot of gestures, and then you produce voices, yeah. And then if you pay attention, I know that perhaps some of us have had the experience of performing a drama. You make some notes, and then when actors make some notes, they make annotation like crazy. Everything is red and white, underlined, circles, and then you make some notes as well. And that's how we actually want our students to read, right? Read the books, and then they make some annotations. And then when actors read, they do read like that, because they really want to understand what are the characters, for example, the characters that they will represent are actually feeling, right? That's why they don't just read the lines. They read the bits. They read the emotions. They read the transfer of the emotion from sad to all of the sudden angry, from anger to then perhaps becoming comedical. Yeah. So these are the types of emotions that actors are investigating when they read. And they read for both text and subtext. Yeah. They read between the lines. They don't just read the text for the text, right? So yeah, don't we all want our students to read like actors in that case then? I hope we do, yeah? Okay, now moving on. So in principle, when we read like actors, yeah, basically what we do is we embody the character. We live by the character. We live the character. We make the characters alive through our own interpretation. And then we read between the lines, and then we visualize the scene. All right. Now, what happened very often in my observation and in my own experience is when you read when you read, for example, a script about, he is sitting by the desk, holding a plate of meal on his hand. Put it differently, if it was in the context of 19th century of European culture, perhaps what is the plate, what's on the plate will be different than if you transfer the stage, if you transfer the text into the context of Indonesia in the 21st century. And that's what happened to the minds of the actors when they read, because and then they will use their background knowledge as well, yeah, to try to actually interpret it differently based on the current context. And then also like I mentioned earlier, they use gestures, voices, yeah, they use tone, rhythm, and vary their paces when they speak, when they read aloud, yeah, as well as continuously rehearse and revisit the script, shows how motivated actors are when they read, right? And Ibu and Bapak, ladies and gentlemen, that's how we want our students to read, right? That is my second question. Okay, all right. Now, what about being a director? Different from different from the perspective of using the habits of readers when they read. When we read like a director, we involve deliberate, analytical, and reflective stance. Yeah, it's not just you experience the text, you experience the word of the text, and then represented it in different words and words. Yeah, as a director, you use the big picture. You are using the helicopter view on what the story is about or what the text is about. And then you try to figure out the intended meaning. What is this text is about? And when you are making your students to think that way, they will elaborate and explore the intended meaning. What is what is the message between the lines? Now, so also, when you read like a director, you have this agency within you. You have the agency to actually have choices on how to interpret what you have understood. And then you discuss it with your actors, and then they will voice their different interpretations. And that will just not enrich the discussion, but it will also increase the possibility of having better, meaningful conversation about the text. Now, I know Ms. Sola is also passionate about dialogic reading. What I would like to emphasize here as well, Bapak Ibu, the dialogue happening when students are situated in a role play situation can be also a very meaningful dialogue, even though the word is perhaps seems surrealistic or not realistic, but the dialogue is real. The effort for making meaning is real, right? So this is what readers as directors do when they are discussing the text or the story. Now, to sum up, yeah, so there are some aspects, of reader as actor, reader as a directors can actually see. First is and foremost is the immersion and emotional response from the readers as actors, and then how then as director they pay attention to the structure, to the theme, to the intention of the story, and how then the story would then be interpreted differently, and then the approach, you feel it as a character, you want to experience it, and then by asking question, remember, oh, what am I experiencing in this? And then as a director, you ask this question: what is this scene doing? Okay, so how am I going to visually represent this on the stage, for example? And then you ask different questions as a reader. What would I feel in this moment? And then as a director, you ask question like, how is this part shaping the reader's views or perception? And lastly, of course, the literary skills of teaching our students to have the empathy and the imagination, yeah. So and as well as how then you translate or interpret the meaning. But as a director, you interpret it differently from a different perspective. You analyze it at the same time you critique it. Yeah, it's not just about presenting what it is written in the text. Yeah, because when a text is written, it is loaded with messages that may be different from your interpretation later on. All right. So these are what you can do, Ibu and Bapak, when you try to implement it in the classroom. Yeah, even as a reader yourself. Now, to be practical, as a post-reading activity, this concept you can introduce to your students. For example, these are just some examples. Yeah, you can introduce a storyboard scenes from a novel, make them make them do a storyboard, yeah, out of the novels that they read, for example, or texts, or perhaps some videos that they watch, yeah, and then perhaps invite them how to stage a moment. Let's have them have a moment to freeze, yeah, and that if this moment is frozen, if this moment is frozen in time, and everybody is in a tableau position, what kind of mood is it appearing? What lightning should we involve? What kind of gestures should represent the emotions of a certain feeling, for example? And then also you can present this as a debate. Yeah, you can talk about why a certain character in the story chose to do A, for example, and then why not B? Yeah, so these kind of situations you can use in the classroom. And then lastly, by using the director's perspective, and you can say what needs to be emphasized, what to downplay, and what changes the meaning should you have a different interpretations of the text, yeah, of the story. Now, my question is, because this is the analogy that is based, or the metaphor that is based on a theoretical foundation, you may have your own analogy of your reading activity as a teacher or as a researcher. I used to have a different analogy because I saw that reading is a process of somebody playing badminton. Yeah. Yeah, we will talk more about how reading is kind of represented, or being represented as somebody playing badminton. But with this analogy, Ibu and Bapak, I'm hopeful that we are not going to stop, yeah, elaborating and exploring the possibilities of teaching reading. Not a very sexy skill, with these kids nowadays, but let's make it more interesting. Let's make it more inviting, and most importantly, let's make it more meaningful for our students. Yeah. So I will end that my presentation there. So thank you very much. Thank you for attention. I think I'm ready to have a Q&A session with everyone of you. Thank you. I'm giving back to Ms. Risa.
Thank you very much, Pak Irfan, for your very interesting presentation. As it turns out, I have actually implemented some of your techniques, but without knowing, and this is the first time I've heard about it in a theoretical, educational context. So now is the Q&A session for about 15 minutes. As said before, you can raise your hand. Okay, somebody has raised their hand. You can now unmute, sir.
Iya,
Udah di-ask. Mr. Andre Maure, I have asked you to unmute. You may now unmute and ask a question. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Andre Maure from Sumber Cendekia Bestari. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to our great presenters, Bu Maria Teodora Ping and Pak Irfan Rifai, for sharing such insightful and interesting material. I'd just like to start by sharing my experience with what I did in my community, Sumber Cendekia Bestari. So at the beginning of this month, on Monday, the 7th of April, we were having an English gathering where we discussed about reading. And the theme of our meeting was the love of reading. So I started by a quick discussion, asking the participants about their reading experience. Interestingly, I found out that most of the participants didn't like reading. They said they didn't like reading. Even there were teachers who participated in the gathering, and then they said they really don't like reading. So this is something interesting. And from Bu Maria's presentation at the beginning, we learned that we had issues with literacy, especially in middle schools. And I think this is a big issue that we need to tackle. Bu Maria, based on your experience, whether at university at Mulawarman and also at Ohio University in the States. Could you please share with us some tips on how we can like motivate and encourage our students so they can have the love of reading? And I think based on my personal experience, extensive reading is very, very useful and important. And how can we, my next question is, how can we incorporate the extensive reading to help our students build their reading skills and improve their reading skills? And to Pak Irfan, I have one interesting question, Pak. How can we apply this principle of the topic reading like an actor, and then discussing it like a director if we do individual reading without friends? Yeah, so that's my questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll give it back to the moderator.
Thank you for your questions, Pak Andre. You may both answer these questions now, Ibu Maria and Pak Irfan.
Okay, thank you very much, Pa Andre, for the very thoughtful question. I think concerning extensive reading, Pa Irfan can also jump in later because both of us are in the association for extensive reading. Yeah, I think it's a very common phenomenon that Indonesian children, Indonesian students, Indonesian people in general, we don't really like reading because in a way our tradition is more to oral tradition. Yeah, we love talking, we love speaking, but I don't know why we don't like, we don't love reading. But I got to say that I really appreciate a lot of community service initiatives related to Rumah Baca and libraries and things like that, that maybe your institution has also been done so far. I think it's also one of the efforts that can help to nurture the love of reading. But of course, just like what I've mentioned previously, it takes the whole nation to be able to get everyone into this love of reading, to the habit of reading. And extensive reading is of course one of the strategies or one of the activities that we can do starting from the very beginning, from the early phase of life. I think what might be missed out in our own context is that we do not really introduce the reading and the love of reading early. Well, I can very well understand. I think we all can very well understand that in order to love reading, you have to have the books. You have to have the facilities first. And it's a sad fact, inconvenient truth that we don't have enough. We don't have enough books. We don't have enough books to, like to introduce early. And sometimes parents also feel like it's a burden to read every night, for example. Well, I think one of the good practices that I've learned from one of my visits to one of the preschools in Ohio is that the school and the teacher, they provide the support for the teachers. Yeah, so they provide the books, and then they also have regular meetings with parents. They just simply talk about the books. So there is no what to call it. There's no burden actually for the parents to perform the book reading in a very formal way, but it's simply like, could you please read with your child at least like once a day before sleeping, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. And then maybe we can talk about that later in our afternoon tea meeting per week. So they have an afternoon tea meeting every week with parents. And during the meetings, they will talk about all these literacy related activities, but in a casual way so that the parents won't be intimidated. And then there's also one brilliant, I think it's very brilliant, one very brilliant initiative at that particular school in which so the librarian in charge of the library there is very, very creative. So the librarian, um, she sends some sort of informal survey to the parents, wanting to know what kind of topics that their children like to read, and then the school will try to provide the books that the children like to read. It's basically extensive reading. So I think we can also adopt that kind of approach. Of course, we have to see our own context, but we should try. As early as possible. And also, I think what is more challenging is to change the mindset that reading is a burden. That reading is something that it's not fun to do. Like well, everyone knows that it is important, but it's not fun. That is the case, I guess. Just like learning in general, everyone knows that we should learn, but it's not fun. So I think the challenge is for all of us, especially for us who are working with literacy, with reading instructions, is that how we can keep on trying to find interesting and creative approaches based on our context, and trying to not make like reading as a burden. I think that would be the collective task that we need to tackle together. But based on the experience, and based on also my discussions with the colleagues at OSU, in the States, it's also similar. Reading is everywhere, not a very fun activity to do, especially when it's like a very intensive kind of serious reading. But what I can tell is that they try to nurture it from the very beginning. Previously, I also did my PhD in Germany, and then they also do the same thing. So they start very early, since preschool. And the way they started is that it's a soft approach. So it's not like you have to read, stay there, sit 15 minutes, read. No, but it's more like, okay, so here are the books. Which one do you like? Maybe we can talk about that, about what you read afterwards. So I think that in that particular sense, we can also, some sort of integrate the extensive reading principles and no burden, no pressure kind of reading. Okay, I hope that can answer your question a little bit, Pak Andre. Maybe Pak Irfan would like to add some more.
Thank you, Bu Lola. Yeah. So I would like to highlight the word fun that Bu Lola mentioned. Yeah, Pak Andre, and I'm going to be very biased here because I love performance. So I think one of the ways that I think Bu Lola also mentioned that give students the reason to love reading, and then as people who are obviously older than our kids and hopefully know better than our kids, yeah, our children, our students, yeah, we can create the reasons for them to love reading. Yeah, so in my context, what I have introduced today is post reading. You can introduce some activities, Andrea, that would actually give them the reasons to go back to the text, investigate, and have fun with it. Yeah, that's why creative projects are very important. Not just drama, but creative projects will then will make them more engaged with the text. Okay, they are not used to, they have not been introduced to reading since children, since perhaps their families are not or have not introduced the reading habits to them. But we can start right now, I mean, by giving them the reasons, by providing post reading activities that are fun and engaging for students. Now, going back to the questions that you asked earlier, Pak Andre, about how if I am reading it by myself, how do I involve, uh, how do I implement the concept of reading it like an actor and reading it and discussing it like a director. Now, some studies found that, of course, the studies found and tried to relate between reading and mental picture or visualization, Pak Andre. And as a reader, I think we are all, yeah, even as a reader or just human being, when we see something, then our mind respond to it, and then we try to visualize it. In my own experience, when I read fictions longer than I read non-fictions. Why? Because when there is every sentence, I try to visualize it. And then I put mental picture of it, just trying to get to understand better. And I think by that, I can say that our mind is actually playing role, trying to be in the word of the characters. Yeah, the word of the characters in the story, because we are visualizing it. So if you want to try to relate it with my presentations about drama, how we integrate drama in the reading process, is that as a soul reader, even as a soul reader, we are actually role playing, Andre, yeah, by visualizing what we read, by stopping, by pausing, and then by reflecting, yeah, with what we read. Yeah, so I think the concept goes deeper, not just at the performance level, or drama as a performance level, but drama in the mind of ours as readers, Bapak. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you very much, Pak Irfan and Ibu Lola, for answering my questions. Very much appreciated. Thank you for sharing your experience as well.
Thank you for the questions, Pak Andre.
Thank you, Pa Andre. So now we have some questions from the chat. I'm gonna read the first one. Hi, Ibu Maria. I'm Adele from Universitas Cendrawasih in Jayapura, Papua. Thank you for your insightful presentation. The instrument would be very helpful for teachers and students. I have a question. After the literacy screening, if teachers were to use your instrument, teachers will need some kind of intervention to help improve their students' literacy skills. What do you think of our school's current literacy teaching? Are our textbooks and practices so far sufficient to respond to the assessment? Do they need to be updated? And do you have any plans for this intervention? So I'll let Bu Maria answer that question.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know, it is Ibu or Bapak Adelte. Okay. Thank you very much for the question. Yeah. Well, just like what I've mentioned previously, actually, the latest textbook published by Kementerian is already having some sort of this idea of a teacher doing a regular assessment of their students' literacy progress. The author, if I'm not mistaken, is Ibu Dr. Sophie Dewayani, also from the States, the graduate from the States. So I think I got to understand her idea in the textbook. So yeah, it will be to some extent sufficient. Yeah. The only thing with the instrument that I have been redeveloping is that we're trying to help provide the alternative assessment, which is standardized, which can be readily used by teachers, because I know that teachers have a lot of burden, especially in teaching loads. Yeah, so sometimes having to create their own assessment all the time will be a bit challenging. So if we have a standardized instrument that can be used to assess the progress, that would be also helpful for the teacher. But of course, in order to be able to use the test, to administer the test, teachers should be trained first. Yeah, it's a part of the manual as well. Yeah, so the next thing that we will be doing is to build up the manuals, and of course, if there are chances of trainings for teachers to be able to use the instruments, and most importantly, because this instrument is not developed only as an evaluation instrument, but also for intervention. Um, the communication with schools and teachers, the collaborations with school and teachers will focus on how schools and teachers can make use of the data to prepare for their own next steps. So if it is adequate or not at the moment, I am quite optimistic that Indonesian schools and teachers can use this particular instrument. But of course, there will be some more efforts on the trainings, and also some of the technical aspects that should be refined in order to make it easier for schools and teachers to make use or to implement or to administer this particular instrument. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, Ibu Maria and Kak Adelce. So it is already 10:30, but we have a lot of people who want to ask questions. So I would like to ask Ibu Maria and Pak Irfan, is it okay if we extend the Q&A session a little bit? Maybe until 10:40, is that okay?
I don't mind. Okay.
Okay, so we might take one or two more questions. So next, Ibu Lahaula, you may ask your question now.
Okay, thank you, Kak Raisa, and also thank you for the presenters from very interesting materials. Actually, I'm quite new to early literacy since my undergraduate background is science education, but now I'm taking my master degree in Triple IU Depok. I'm taking literacy course right now, and one key takeaways in reading assessment is that we cannot solely assess reading fluency, but also reading comprehension and how students interact with text. My first question is, how does your instrument account for such comprehension and interaction within text? And the second is, since many kindergarten right now begin to teaching reading for students, should we start to assess reading skill on that such early age too, Bu? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'll leave it to Dr. Maria and Pak Irfan to answer.
Okay, thank you very much for the question, Ibu Lahaula. Well, yeah, this is always the debate on what to teach, what to test, right? My instrument, or our instrument is actually focused on the early foundational skills. So it might not include, the original one includes the comprehension, the reading, because the original version is having a bit wider audience, but I will be focusing on the first grader and their transition to the second grade. So we only adapt 3 sub tasks, which are more related to the what we call the code related strategy like phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, concepts about prints, and not really touching yet to the one that you mentioned, the interplay, also with the meanings and the comprehension. But of course, since literacy instruction should be systematic, so we will get there. We will get there eventually. But my instrument is meant for the basics, foundational skills first. Because if we disregard, if we ignore these foundational skills, then of course it will influence the further development of the skills. Of course, they cannot really comprehend yet. They cannot build the critical reading skills yet if they don't know the basic skills like the letter sounds, connection, and something like that. So that's why I'm really brokenhearted when the news broke about the middle school junior high school students in Indonesia who cannot read and write fluently yet, because how can they understand the text then if they're not capable to master the basic foundational skills. So that's why we have to take care first about these code related skills before we move on to the more complicated skills. But of course, there's no magic approach. There's no single magic approach for everything. So that's why we have to combine the approaches to see which one works. So I think that's why evidence-based practices are really important, because then we know, okay, this one doesn't really work. Maybe this one. Okay, let's try a combination. Things like that. So it's a very tough subject, actually, literacy. We tend to ignore literacy. We thought that, okay, everyone will be able to read eventually, but no. If we don't have such a solid instruction, we cannot do so. So going back to my instrument, unfortunately, it's not focusing yet on that particular complex aspect, but hopefully it can provide a basic solid basic foundation first, and then afterwards, after we are sure that our students master all these foundational skills, they can move on a bit higher to the more critical reading comprehension. I hope that answers your question. Or if Irfan would like to jump in.
So I just want to say that I agree with everything that Dr. Maria has expressed. Yeah, but I would like to add one more thing. Yeah, perhaps in the in the area of early childhood education. Yeah, Bula Kaula. Yeah, I think in the context of literacy, in the United States, they emphasize that grade 1 until 3 as the opportunity to learn to read, and then upper grades for 4 until 6 in our context is perhaps the opportunity to reading to learn. Yeah, so I think that signified what Dr. Maria has said earlier. But let's prepare the foundations early on. Let's prepare, especially in the context of early childhood education, is let's make them in love with reading, give them reasons, expose them with text and reading, get them to know what books is, and first and foremost is this, that this is the cover and this is how you should turn the books or the pages. And recent, surprisingly, Bu Lakaula, recent study found that perhaps in the early childhood, we don't introduce them too early with the digital text. Perhaps let's just read them and expose them with prints early on, because by then they will get to know, like what Dr. Maria said, get to know the basics. That's for me, Raisa.
Thank you so much for the insightful answers, Dr. Maria and Dr. Irfan.
Thank you for the question, Ibu.
Okay. Thank you, Ibu Lakola, for the questions. Thank you, Pak Irfan, Bu Maria, for your answers. So first, I'd like to acknowledge that some people in the chat asked if they can get the presentation slides. So they have already been sent in the group chat just recently, by BINUS Walan and Jessia. So Bapak Ibu, you can now save the presentations, preferably before the Zoom ends. Also, we have time for just one more question before we end this presentation. But if you have some questions you would like to ask, please feel free to contact Dr. Irfan or Dr. Maria directly through their email. Maybe Dr. Maria and Dr. Irfan, you can send your email in the Zoom chat as well if people would like to ask more questions. For now, our final question will be a very popular one in the chat. It has a lot of likes and hearts, by Septi Rahayu. I'd like to ask Bu Maria regarding to meaningful family partnership. My name is Septi, a primary school teacher from rural area in Kalimantan. Thank you for your presentation. In communities where many parents may come from less formally educated backgrounds, what are some practical strategies or tips for building meaningful partnerships with families, especially in a way that respects their experiences and encourages their active involvement? Also, Bu Maria, you may answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Bu Septi. It's a very important question, and I think it's also something that we should keep on discussing, because there will be no single best way to do this. Everything will be based on the context, of course. But I think I mentioned this example during my presentation, which I think it's quite brilliant. The example that one of the principals of the schools in the States told me, because the school is also located in a place or in the region in which the parents are not from the high socioeconomic status. Even some of the parents are single parents, so they don't go to university or things like that. But they can still be involved in their child's literacy development, and also the child's learning. What the school has done is that they have a regular casual meeting. So it's not like a formal meeting where you invite the parents and then tell them what to do, blah 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 blah, in a very strict way. But it's more like, come to school, we will have some snacks, and tea and coffee are available. So it's just like for talking about daily life and about their children. And also the school encourages the parents to share to one another about what they do with their child. So for example, what kind of book do you read together, or what kind of activity that you do together with your child, and can you share with the others? Do you think that this one works? Do you think that this one is helpful for your children? So it's um, it's not really like pushing the more theoretical, conceptual kind of instructions to the head of the parents. That doesn't work out apparently. But it's more like, why not doing this? Why not doing that? What about you? What have you done? Can you share with us? And then what can we learn from this? So we all the what is good, I think, is that the school and the teachers put the parents at the same level as them. So they're like peers, and they learn from each other. And it's in a non-intimidating kind of way. So we might not be able to adopt this like as is, but I think your school and your fellow teachers understand the characteristics of the parents there and how to communicate with them. So you can adopt the idea of meeting the parents and try to just talk to them knowing first what they do with their children at home, and then what the school and the teachers can help in terms of the literacy related activity. The thing is, this particular activity is also related to other supports or other activities done by the school. So for example, it is highly related to their library activity. So based on the chit chats, the library will provide books which are interesting for both the parents and the children, so they can read together. If what if the parents are not that literate, so they cannot read, because there are some parents who graduated only from, or not even graduated from primary school. Yeah, well, you can switch the idea that they don't really have to read the book to the children, but it's their children who can also read to them, so they can talk about the book together. It doesn't have to be like a very high pressuring activity of reading together, but it can be just, talking about the book, just like Pak Irfan mentioned, maybe talking about the pictures in the book, and so things like that. So I guess that can be one of the alternatives that you can try. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Or maybe if Pak Irfan would like to add based on his experience as well as parents.
Yeah, I think you have covered, all the significant responses to the questions, Ibu. I think I for the third questions, I'm good. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Ibu Laura. But I'm going to give it back to Ms. Raisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Maria and Pak Irfan, for your insightful answers. So this concludes the Q&A session. As mentioned before, if you still have questions you want to ask, you may contact Dr. Mari and Dr. Irfan through their emails that are in their presentation slides, which are also in the Zoom chat. So just check it there. So before we close, we're going to have a picture together session. I'm going to screenshot each page and okay, we're going to screenshot each page and I will count down. So would Bapak Ibu, would you like to open your camera so that you can be in the picture? Okay. First page, 1, 2, 3. Second page, 1, 2, 3. Third page, 1, 2, 3. Fourth page, 1, 2, 3. Fifth page, 1, 2, 3. And sixth page, 1, 2, 3. Oh, seventh page, 1, 2, 3. And that concludes our photograph session. Thank you, Dr. Mari and Dr. Irfan, for your insights. Thank you, Bapak Ibu, for your participation. Hopefully, we can all work together to improve literacy in Indonesia.
I hope
you.
so.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
very
much.
much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Bapak. Thank you. Thank you, Mbak.
Thank you
so
very much.
much.
Thank you
Mbak
all.
Mita, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Andre. Thank you, Pak Andre.
Mbak Raisa.
Thank you, Pak Irfan. Thank you, everyone.
Andre, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Irfan, Dr. Maria, and also BINUS team
Thank
for
you.
this wonderful event.
Thank you,
Thank
Bu
you,
Mita.